Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Cleaning and Cocktails in the studio. As you guys know, I love to do my episodes in the studio. Nothing makes me more happier, and nothing makes me more happier when I'm shooting an episode with a friend. You know, I'd say, Kris, you're a friend, you're a mentor, you're many things for me. So I'm excited for this episode because of many things. You're going to be speaking at the Cleaning and Cocktails live event in San Jose.
Yeah.
We're going to share some of your background and our story, how we got to know each other. And this is a little different, you guys. So Kris, usually you guys know, right? We start the show with, this is a podcast that spotlights cleaning business owners, software companies in the cleaning space, suppliers, manufacturers, everything cleaning. Mm-hmm. It's a little different. Kris doesn't come from the cleaning industry, but you do come from an industry that starts with the letter C. That's the commercial real estate industry. That's right. So what I wanted to do, Kris, is give you a chance to share a little bit about who you are. But I was going to lay the foundation with you guys is when I first started my cleaning company, it was working at a bar where me and Kris met at Public House in Chicago. So it's funny where things go now is that starting that cleaning company then led to this. And we'll talk about your story now is when you were working on something, the things you were doing is where you are today. Yeah. But first and foremost, Kris Krisco, thank you for being on the show, my man.
Appreciate you having me. Yeah, I've been around the software game now for 10 years. I know we'll talk a lot about that today, but going back, a lot of the coolest experiences of my life have happened in the last 13 years since getting to know you at Public House and making the decision to sort of leave the bar industry, go into commercial real estate. Didn't really have a lot of time between commercial real estate and commercial real estate tech. Saw an opportunity to make an impact. Later became the CEO of that company called Buildout in Chicago, and it's been a fun ride. About 10 years now I've been after that. We're fortunate to have 50% of the market, of the commercial real estate brokerage market on our software. So something that we're super proud of.
That's market share.
And market share.
That's market share.
Jeez. All around the country too. Not really any major concentration. Obviously the biggest states carry the biggest population and usually the most revenue and so forth for us. But our problem really solves something that every commercial real estate brokerage has. And so selling that software has been more of a matter of some of the stuff I'm sure we'll talk about today, building teams, leading people through, what we think of as build out is making money the right way, operating with integrity, planning for the long run. We're always trying to make sure that every decision we make is one that's built to last. You know, we don't like making decisions for the next quarter or even the next year. It's really how is the decisions we're making today going to impact this industry, this company, our customers, et cetera, 5 years from today, 7 years from today, 10 years from today. And that sort of principal way of running the business has served us, and I think it will continue to do that long after I'm a part of leading it.
Nice, man. Well, it's funny you said the word lead a couple times, right? And just to give a little bit of a hint of what you're going to be talking about at Cleaning and Cocktails in San Jose on July 23rd to the 25th is you're talking about leading, say it again, lead yourself first. And part of your session, which I'm excited about, and I think a lot of our industry, again, it's irrelevant what industry you're in when you're talking about things like emotional intelligence, leadership, team building, mentorship, which again, that's why I kind of lean on you when I was first building Route is you have a lot of experience with this, and you kind of have like a secret passion for this, right?
For emotional intelligence. And yeah, when I say lead yourself first, I think there's a whole world out there right now of people trying to sort of give you all of the tactics and playbooks to run in order to be a good leader. And I think the first thing I look for in a good leader is this something that they actually practice, or are they just talking about all of these things? You know, you learn a lot about people, especially over time. You know, time is sort of the great revealer. Mm-hmm. And if you're not somebody who can lead themselves, who could show up consistently, who could be centered in hard times, then how the hell could you expect anybody else in your charge to do that? And so the segment that I'll be leading is really something that will be non-standard for your listeners, I think in particular. It's going to be about getting clarity about what you actually want so that you could set a target, but then actually sort of back that target all the way down into 1 week increments to get clear on what do I need to get done this week as the CEO of this company, as the sales rep, as the support rep, but even as a father, as a spouse, husband, wife, as a community leader, the things that matter to you, get clarity around that so then you can put a framework in place that you can run on a weekly basis to make sure that, somebody said to me, there's a lot of plants, sitting behind you that you can't, when you're talking about these different areas of your life, call it like being a good husband or father in your case, which I know you are, you can't let any of your plants die and then decide 10 years from now when you're a, super successful, rich guy, now I'm going to go be a good husband or a father. By then the plants have died. So one of the things that I'll be talking about a little bit is really how do you create sort of this beautiful flywheel effect that sort of is, allows your business to feed into a great family life and your family life to lead back into a good business so that you're showing up as the best leader you can be, and then allowing the people in your charge to sort of, really galvanize around your leadership.
Well, man, here, cheers to that, because we didn't even cheers. It's called cleaning the cocktails, right? Cheers. What are you drinking there?
Cheers.
Chris, is that a little bit of
gin and juice?
A little bit of gin and juice. I got some Fletcher. I wonder why we're drinking this stuff. Interesting.
It's good. First time. Woo! Won't be the last.
Good stuff. Good stuff. All right. So, lead yourself first, man. And I wanted to say the cheers was for Kris too. Is you are a great father. You're a good husband. You're taking out Genoa. I think this
Las Vegas tomorrow for her birthday.
Again, another great thing that came from where we first met and where we worked. Talk a little bit about how that has played a role with what you've done with Buildout, with the role that you've had to take, because you played multiple roles in Buildout, right? You didn't,
no doubt.
So in your case, where many of our audience, they're the CEO because they own the company and they launched the company. So
yeah,
they're not technically going out there to apply to be a CEO somewhere. So talk about first the family side and how that's led to you being able to take on these big important roles, man.
Yeah. So I mean, both of us have the benefit of having supportive wives to the nth degree. I think about this often in terms of when you're crazy enough to do what we do for a living, how you hear this statement growing up that behind a great man is an even stronger woman. Yeah. It couldn't be any more true in my experience. The ability to go out, to put in the long hours, to dedicate to your craft, to become skilled so that you're actually useful in the economy and to the people that you lead. We can't do that without somebody on the home front that can really hold down the fort, be super supportive of that dream and that mission. So they play a huge role in that. And that leads to wanting to have kids with the person that you admire. And
how fun are the kids?
Well,
I see some funny. Remember I joked your picture when you called me. It's your hilarious looking face with your kids.
Yeah. We're goofy in my house, like all of us. I mean, we're always joking around, but it's always, a combination of taking our time and explaining the things that actually matter to the kids. Like we're not short with them about the things that are important for, sort of the values that you need to withhold in order to just be a good human while you're here. Mm-hmm. So explaining the why to things is something that Genoa does better than I do, but that we really try to practice in the house is, really explaining for each of these things instead of just yelling about something that they're doing wrong or rewarding them for something they're doing right, explaining why that's right or wrong, so that they know what to repeat and what not to repeat. But the home front's been great. It's been, I know when this episode comes out, I'll no longer be the CEO of Buildout, which we could talk about later. Yeah. Stepping down in a couple weeks here, moving to the board and bringing in somebody who's just the better leader for the company right now. and then I'm going to be going into this journey again, going starting another company, going to burn all my cash. You know,
you're gonna help me too, though.
Put it
He's
into a
gonna come
pile.
help me too.
Put it all in a pile, light it on fire, and hope it comes
What do they
back.
say? Like burn the ship. Burn the ship.
That's what we're doing. So I mean everything
But
on
that's
the
what you
home
said
front
is
is
fun.
great. Oh,
That's what's
the
fun
best.
about it, right? So
It's
how does
the best.
Genoa back that up though? Like, oh, we just got to like, are you gonna do it again?
Well, yeah. I mean, I'll give you a perfect example. We're selling a house that that we love to be in, and we're going to go back to renting because I want the capital to make sure that I have enough to build the business without having to give it away to investors too early on. I think a lot of people, and it's usually a telltale sign. I'm not trying to pick at any founder out there, but there's a big difference between somebody that's hungry enough to go make it happen and somebody who's not. And one of the clearest things that I look at is like this new age of people taking on all this pre-seed money and diluting themselves and their company down to nothing before they even have a chance.
Yeah.
And I don't want to do that. I'd rather spend my capital, bet on myself. And, it's really cool because if I pull up my text messages, the day that I decided to step down, I wrote this note to my wife and I explained that, we're going to kind of go backwards. We're going to go backwards for a while because I have to do this.
Yeah.
And her response, I'm waiting for a paragraph saying, but like, let's talk about this later and this and that. And she just wrote, I'm not scared. And I was like, that's it with a period. And I get chills saying it because it's like, when you're in this position where you're crazy enough, again, to do what we're doing, and you have somebody who's really the support system for your family that just says, I'm not scared. It's basically a way of saying like, we got you. Yeah. And you could just take on the world from there. So, so that's it.
Because that's the thing is, yes, you have your business environment, you have your friends, you have your family, but when you are married, it's just different when you go home every day to that partner, right? Because that's your partner. Marley's my partner. Like there's those hours that there is nobody else.
Right.
It's them, and it's your kids, right? And to know that they got your back, it does mean that much more. The team's got your back, the family's got your back. Oh, so many people have your back, but your spouse, your partner at home, they're there in the hours that nobody is. So
no doubt.
Cheers.
Cheers to that for sure.
Cheers to that for sure. I was going to say this, Kris, too, is I thought of this when you were talking about, I think you were saying clarity, communication to the team as you're trying to lead them. Mm-hmm. Or I'm sorry, no, with your kids. You're talking about it with your kids.
Yep.
You're clarifying, hey, just because you did this doesn't mean you get a reward. Just because you did this wrong doesn't mean I should yell at you. I have taken some of that to the business side, right? It's like I've been so the assumption of thinking everybody always knows what they're supposed to do, or that what you said is what they heard. I've been taking like, man, to lead better, I have to be a little bit more clear, pause, take a minute, right? Because, dude, assumption is bad. Like you assume people know their roles.
Yeah.
It's funny, you saw Dominic earlier here today, but like we've always talked about like clear job descriptions, clarifying the org chart. Like it's I don't want to do all that. We'll get to it. It's like, the longer you wait to get to it, the longer people are going to take to understand. What do you think about that?
A lot. So, no, it's a really, really important point. So I think a few things are coming to mind for me. The first thing is when you're leading the company, the most important thing to realize is that not everybody is thinking about the company 24/7 the way that you are. So the way that you're thinking about and understanding the way that all these different dynamics of the business are connecting, they're not. I mean, 9 times out of 10. Even your all-star players, even your best players are not thinking about the business the way you are and understanding it quite at the level. Yeah. They're not mind readers. So being as specific as you can be, clarifying, then re-clarifying the point. But the most important part that I feel like is a great sign of a great leader is in Covey's book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
Dude, it's the third time I hear that book. I haven't read it yet. Third time this week I've heard that book.
I don't.
There's like workbooks and manuals to it, right?
Top three read of all time. Like in terms of just helping you become a more well-rounded human, which sort of impacts all these different areas of your life. Definitely an influence on the exercise that I'll be teaching at Cleaning Cocktails. Okay. But there's a concept in the book where he explains to his son his job for the summer. And he explains that it's an outcome-based explanation. He said, your job is to make the grass green. And you could do anything you want except for paint it. Oof. And then here, and like anything goes. And here's the most important part. He says, and if you need help, ask me. That's the part where I feel like you can go so far with your employees, and it has to be genuine. But when you explain something, explain it to everybody, lay it out, be as crystal clear as you know how to be. Make sure you create enough space for people to, there's too many
let them do.
100%. But a lot of people say, does that make sense? And then it's like, nobody wants to be embarrassed. So everybody says, yeah. That makes sense. Nobody wants to say. So you really didn't give them good criticism. No, you have to, like a great alternative for does that make sense would be, what questions do you have for me? What did I not explain well?
Because it's not a yes, no.
Exactly. Okay. And now you're kind of creating, and you could look at individual people if you're in a town hall or something.
And I feel like I have to answer, if you ask me that, I have to think of some feedback.
Something.
I have to think of something.
Yeah, what feedback do you have for me is another great one. But then this idea that, hey, I trust all of you to make the grass green or whatever this thing was, but if you need me, ask me, right? Don't go just do it. If you don't know what you're doing and you need help, I'm here. And giving people that sort of psychological air to breathe, to know that like you are there to support them if you need it, and for you to mean it, I think is really crucial.
And I think that creates good behavior.
Yes.
Right? Like if you think about it, like if they get used to do it, there may be times they don't ask then.
Yeah.
And that's actually like, all right, cool, they got it. They're figuring it out. And it's if they don't know that because you didn't clarify that, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So let's talk. Let's reference this. So I'm going to try to bring this back into the cleaning industry, right? So a lot of the industry is a smaller business industry. Yes, we have the big companies, but the statistic we always use is like about 90% of the industry is operating at under $1 million in revenue. That could look like a company of 2 or 3 managers with like 20 or 30 employees.
Yeah.
So I think of that, and I think of startups, right? I think of like when you have a startup, that's the world you probably live in, is a few management leadership roles, and then the rest are either like development designers. They're part of the team.
Yeah.
So something that I always get asked by a lot of the smaller businesses that want to get to that next level, and the next level to me is like you add that next layer of management or middle management, right? That's where a lot of people, I think, fail. It's a tough part. You don't know how to delegate. What exercises or what pivotal point when you were building Buildout did you go from startup mentality to, we have a business, I have to delegate, I have a team, I need like workshops, exercises?
Yeah. Let's see. I mean, in revenue wise, I sold and sort of took calls all day long for a few years.
So that was the first role you had was sales
really
and
just
revenue.
Sales. It was such an immature business. It was just like sales. So I would do cold calling, I would demo, I would close, pick up the phones when we started having a way to sort of have inbound stuff. Was really kind of doing what are separated into like 3 or 4 different roles today, even being on implementation calls and so forth. You just wear many hats in the early days.
Which, side note on that is the life of a cleaning business owner. As far as in the beginning, we are the salespeople first. Like
sure.
We have the team to run the bit, like clean, do the work, inspect. For a while, we are always selling. So again, similarities.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, I think any business, right? I think ultimately, I heard the best example I ever heard of like, what do you need to do to run a business? Like you need to learn how to build, you need to learn how to lead, and you need to learn how to sell. And if you're a person that could do all 3 of those, man, you're going to be an unstoppable leader. There just aren't a lot of those people in the economy that could do all 3. Mm-hmm. And when it comes into like what happened at Buildout, I hired one of my best friends in the world, later stood up as the best man in his wedding. which was an honor to be my first VP of sales. I knew that I was more of a business development person, a relationship person, not somebody that would put the operational system in place. Yeah. So, I heard a quote the other day that was something along the lines of like, knowledge isn't knowing how to do everything. It's knowing who has the answers to you need done.
Answers to the questions.
And so that learning how to leverage that to go find the information you need, and then have the willingness to, just for example, maybe give up your own equity to bring on another partner who will make, will synergize, or will make that the combined whole worth more. So I was able to bring on a friend of mine from Salesforce, kind of put the operational system in place. And that's really where we started to do more training stuff. And around that time is when I came over to Rosalato for the first time and talked with your team. But yeah, I think, so
that was workshops. You found the right people.
Oh yeah.
And people gave you the freedom to start to scale.
Well, the other thing, I guess while you're saying that, I'm realizing this more in real time, is like, be honest with yourself about what you're good at.
Yeah. You hear that all the time.
Not what you want to do.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing that I think a lot of people, when they hear delegate.
Trust me, I'm good at this. I know how to do it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. What are you really good at? And also, like, when you hear delegation, I was talking to a friend of mine earlier today, who's just kind of going through some change at their business, and he needs to delegate more stuff, clearly. And I told him, when you're delegating, you don't get to just give away all the shit you don't want. Can I swear on here? No.
Oh, yeah. You're good. Trust me.
You don't get to just give away all the shit you don't want. That's not what delegating is. Delegating should happen for one of two reasons, or both. Number one, the person that you are delegating to will do it better than you will. And like, be honest about that. Because there are those people that will do a lot of the tasks in your business better than you will, even though you think you're the best at everything. Yeah. Number two is, by giving this away, you are able to go work on your own zone of genius, the thing that you could do that nobody else could do.
That's the key, dude. Sometimes you think of, I need to do this to buy myself some freedom back on this and that. It's like, double down.
100%. 100%.
You said zone of genius too. I like that.
Zone of genius. We could get into. You want to hear about that? Yeah. Cool book. I read it years ago. Don't remember where it came from, but I heard a kid say, "I read this book. Totally changed my life." And I'm like a serendipity guy. I'm like, I heard that guy say that. It's for a reason. I'm gonna go pick up that book.
Go do it. Yeah.
So I went and grabbed this book. It's called The Big Leap. It has this like fish jumping out of being the big fish in the little pond into a way bigger pond, and kind of going back into being a small fish again, which I think we all have to do if we're going to excel. But in this book, this guy talks about there's 4 zones that human beings operate in. They operate in a zone of incompetence, competence, excellence, and genius. And we've all seen this, like areas where we're just incompetent. Or areas like we can do it. Like for me, like if you ask me to get into an Excel spreadsheet and start going, like
Lord have mercy.
I will figure it out just because, but it will be embarrassing how much time it takes for me to navigate that. And then the zone where most people operate, especially high performers, they get stuck in a zone of excellence. They're good at things. They're like hardworking people. They're thoughtful. They're emotionally intelligent, whatever that might look like. But they spend all this time in this zone of excellence because they spread themselves across too many different things. Instead of saying, honestly, this is the thing that I can do that nobody else can do. It's so easy for me. When I do it, everybody compliments me. Yeah. When I do it, it's so effortless. Like, those are signs that you're operating in that zone of genius. You're having that conversation and you're getting the compliments, the sales are coming in, the part of your business is getting better. How can I actually create my organizational structure so that I could spend as much of my time as possible doing that? And I'm not trying to say that business founders aren't going to have to wear many hats. Yeah. You do for many years. But as you start to build out that team, don't hire people like you.
Damn.
Hire people that aren't like you, that do the things well that you're not good at, so that you can keep doing the things.
That's interesting, because I will catch myself thinking, I need a high. So maybe here, correct me, or maybe we could dive into this. Is we'll say even here, whether it's Route Rollout or any of the brands that we have, man, we got to hire people that have that get shit done mentality.
Yeah.
Right. So is that different than like
Totally.
That's mentality, right? That's like your intensity level, right? Versus the traits that I think is what you're talking about. The
100%.
traits and like the mechanicals, the things that these people work at. That's who we should hire different than like me. I don't work well with a virtual assistant.
Oh, well,
I have teams that
I don't
they've
either.
got 3.
Yeah.
I'm like, how do you have 3? I can't even do 1. They just are better at it, right? Like,
yeah. It's interesting. So I guess, let me see. So Hire Bus is going to be at your conference, blanking on his name. Brandon.
Dude, he
super
said,
cool.
how
guy.
funny is this? Is because you just reminded me, he shared the Zone of Genius thing too. So you both
Cool.
speak on emotional intelligence, and you shared
Awesome.
Zone of Genius.
So I saw his product, Hire Bus,
Yeah.
personality assessment, show you where these people are going to sort of show up in different parts of just how they're wired. It's not anything personal. It's just how you're wired.
Because that's what the problem is. You bring personal in. And
Well,
then
yeah,
it takes
people are like, I don't want to
eliminates.
be that way. And it's like, but you are. Like, it's okay, you know? And like,
That's a plug for Hire Bus. You're welcome. You're welcome.
yeah. So yeah, but I mean, that's a really good example of like the difference. Like when I look at, give me one trait for humans in the world, by far, I'll take hunger. By far. That's something that like, I'm not the only person. I think Tony Robbins says the same thing, but I will take hunger over any other attribute, even over intellectual quotient, emotional quotient. Give me somebody who wants it and they will get it.
Yeah.
That's
That's so powerful because you think about the other intellectual or like just the other thing, like those all have, I believe, a breaking point or a wall that they'll hit. Where hunger, there is no wall.
There's no wall.
There's no wall.
There's no wall. And it's not just a get shit done. It's a figure shit out.
Right.
There's Amazon when they were sort of during the height of their growth period, maybe call it like a decade ago, like in the middle part of the last decade. They had a really hard, they have like a really tough place to work. Like that's the environment. It's like it's very high standards, very high stakes. You're expected to raise the bar really high. But they had this saying that I'll never forget that was, we have a saying in Amazon, when you hit the wall, climb it. And it was like there is no stopping. Like as soon as you hit that thing, like either break through it, dig under it, climb over it. There's no excuse. And having that no excuse mentality when you have to get shit done, what it actually ended up doing is you would think it would deter a bunch of people from wanting to work there. They had an influx
Yeah, I was gonna say, if anything,
of all the people that identified with that.
That's a challenge, man. That's crazy. Like think about another way to look at that is so you could easily say, "Oh man, I've hit that wall." You know what? It's all good. You know, like ask for help or come back or do, there's other ways other people would probably answer that or they say,
but they make excuses. I mean, that's the number one thing that like, so I have my business partner for a long time now, technical side of the business at Buildout. We're co-CEOs. He sort of runs the tech side. I'm fascinated because he comes from a family where all of the kids on his father's side were like super successful. And I'm not going to try to explain what they all did, but like inventors, running hospitals, being the biggest attorney, like lawsuit attorney in history or something like, but all of them in the same family. So you're like, okay, what's going on here? And the only thing that I could come up with in asking him is like his dad's siblings, they weren't allowed to make excuses growing up about anything ever. And my business partner is the same way, and he's one of the most effective people I've ever seen. So anytime anything ever happens, he will spend zero time talking about all the reasons why this got fucked up. He'll spend all the time saying like, okay, what could we have done differently? Or what do we do now, more importantly? And so that ability to just...
This is not a problem, this is an opportunity.
Yeah, exactly. This thing happened.
Yeah,
you could call it whatever word you want to call it. It happened either way, and we have to move from here. So there's no point of sitting there on our hands. There's definitely no point of starting other things I've seen in other companies is one person starts complaining and it spreads like cancer to the rest of the organization. Oh, we're under-resourced. Oh, the product isn't good enough. There's a million reasons why your business isn't going to do well. Find the reason that actually helps.
It does nothing for you to talk about.
Nothing, yeah. Literally.
Yeah. So, all right, man. So now I wanted to segue before we're going to take a quick break, but I wanted to touch on one more thing before, because I think it's relevant. We have another speaker that was by way of you, Ramen, from Janitorial Institute. Tell me, we don't want to give too much away, but like that was something important for you, because I remember like you did really speak high of that experience that you had with. Is it, you don't have to dive too deep in the program, but like that was another point in your life or point in the career that you have that has helped you to where you are today.
Yeah, and more than anything, I would say it's helped me in every area of my life. My friendships, my family life, every aspect of that. And then obviously as a leader and being able to manage people. I've always felt intuitively that like something was missing. Like something was out there that I couldn't explain, but that I knew in my stomach was how businesses needed to run. And through just a series of random coincidences, I get introduced to this guy, Raman Chadha, who runs the Junto Institute in Chicago. He's mostly remote now, but he's kind of getting back into some coaching and stuff with executives and executive teams. Awesome program. Would encourage literally anyone to look into the Junto Institute. It's not a sales pitch. It's just Raman's the master of emotional intelligence. But he started explaining this concept to me over the phone because I got introduced through this guy from Cleverbridge in Chicago. And he's basically explaining this thing that like I've known intuitively that like
you just couldn't label.
How could I manage other people without managing myself? This is kind of the root of what I'll be talking about in San Jose. And in order to and then he was telling me, a lot of people think emotional intelligence is empathy, like that you can like understand what another person is feeling. And it's like, yes, that is one part. It's like 1/20th or 1/50th of emotional intelligence. And he explained this program to me. And I'm thinking in my head, well, that's worth a lot of money. Then he gave me the price, and I was like, oh, well, that seems like a no-brainer. So my partners and I went through this program where the three of us would show up every Friday, and for several hours in a row, we would sit and talk. Or it was one Friday a month, excuse me. So we would go one Friday a month, and we would sit there and talk. And you had to bring your biggest topic, like the number one thing that was bothering you about the business or whatever you wanted to bring. And here's the cool part. One person had to talk for 30 minutes consecutively without anybody else talking.
So you could really get instead of interruption, right? Like,
you have to prepare. Yeah. You have to prepare. But the biggest thing is like you don't realize as a human that like you almost never listen for 30 minutes in a row unless you're watching TV. So it's a practice of actually turning off all the noise in your head so that you could sit there and listen to what this person is saying or see if they're moving their feet or crossing their arms or twinkling their toes or whatever. People tell a lot through their nonverbal communication. But when you're able to quiet the mind and sort of be present with that person, you could understand a lot more of what's happening. And emotional intelligence was really cool for me because going back into this idea of leading yourself first, I'll explain. Is it cool if I just explain to the group? Yeah. So emotional intelligence is essentially a series of building blocks that stack on top of one another. The core or the foundation is essentially self-awareness. So the idea is you can't manage yourself, step 2, self-management, unless you're aware of yourself. So how do you get aware of yourself? There are practices like meditation or journaling or like just talking something out with somebody. We have like my family and I have a wheel of emotions that are in the middle of the table at dinner every night that the kids will go through and we'll talk about like, how you doing and why and whatever. And so we could kind of have that conversation. And the idea is like you have to be self-aware in order to manage yourself. So if right now I was aware of something that I didn't like that I was doing with you or something like that, I could change it. I could say, oh, I should change this or that or whatever. It's very similar to probably just like this setting. On top of self-management, you have social awareness. This is like that person. So Rick, who is Rick? What's he like right now? How's he sitting? What's the dynamic of this conversation? And then the very top is relationship management. And if you think about it as building blocks that sort of build all the way to the top right, the top one is influence. And if you are a leader and you aren't able to influence people, you will never get that company from 250, 500,000 to 5 million or wherever you're trying to go. So once you learn how to manage yourself, be aware of yourself, manage yourself, you could graduate to managing and understanding these other people, but ultimately get all of these people to go where the company needs to go. That has to be, it's a skill. It's not an accident, and it definitely doesn't just come from somebody who gets up and says, let's go fucking get them. Yeah. It's not just a rah-rah speech. It's like you have to understand that might work for those 4 people. So you're better off pulling those 4 people in an office and saying, let's go fucking get them. Yeah. And then you take these other 4 and you're like, hey, so here's what we need to do.
That makes so much sense. Sometimes you think it works for everybody. It's not, no, it doesn't work for the whole group. That's being aware.
Yeah.
That you know how to manage those people, managing yourself, how to talk to them, to then lead the people. And oh my God,
So
nobody can get to that without. I mean, by chance they may have some of these skill sets over here leading up to there. Well, or you have to practice these over and over again.
Type A people practice it their whole life.
Their whole life.
Okay. Because when you're born, let's say that you grow up in a family that's affluent, where your family would be considered good looking and you're athletic and you're smart. Yeah, well, then you're just going to practice this shit your whole life because all your teachers are going to give you the benefit of the doubt. All the people, you're going to practice being that way. Whereas imagine many of those things are the opposite, or you're very introverted. You're kind of not practicing those skills your whole life. So you have to be much more deliberate about something that just a lot of like type A personalities just got to practice just by being born. Yeah. And that's why you get these people that are like, oh man, that guy's got the gift of gab or whatever, or this guy could sell anything. I sell ice to Eskimos or whatever. It's like that dude's been practicing some form of influence or manipulation since he was 4.
Well, and that's when you could have, right? Unconscious bias starts at like 3 years old.
100%.
Right? And then it compounds.
Of course. Of course.
All right. Well, dude, I'm getting better at this. We got to take a break.
Okay.
Because we need a word from our sponsors. So we'll be right back. Hey, cleaning industry professionals, did you miss out on the Cleaning and Cocktails event in San Jose? No worries, we've got you covered. For a limited time, you can get your hands on the entire event recording. And trust me, you don't want to miss it. This is 16 hours of pure gold featuring 49 of the industry's experts who are spilling gems on everything from strategy, SEO, execution to marketing, cutting edge technology, AI, and even critical importance on mental health and physical wellness in the workplace. And the best part is, you get unlimited lifetime access. That's right, you could revisit these episodes and these sessions anytime you need a boost, a new idea, or just a refresher on the latest trends and tactics. Even though the live event has passed, the networking doesn't stop. We all know that. By getting access to this webinar, you're connecting with a community of driven professionals who are all about taking their business to the next level. We are what? Stronger together, right? So click the link below in the comments to get on the wait list. This is a limited time offer and the clock is ticking. Don't let this opportunity pass you by. Secure your spot and start transforming your business today. Remember, this is your chance to learn from the best, build your network, and get the tools you need to dominate in the commercial cleaning industry. So act now before it's too late. So, Kris, on the break, we touched on, it's not a quote, but it's a saying you said you and your partner have. Can you share that with me? Because there's a lot I want to unpack with this saying.
Yeah, so as my experience has been, as the company grows and you bring on more quote unquote experts or capital and you have more people to report to, is there's a tendency to think that every decision you make should be influenced by some data set that supports that. Every entrepreneur knows that that's obviously not the case, because no company would ever lift off the ground without anything more than just maybe an understanding that this market looks inefficient. My business partner actually came up with this when he helps me think through sort of clarifying things similar to this Junto concept. But I just explained to this, this problem that I saw as the company kept growing. And he said, the principle is something like never let a lack of data overrule your intuition. And I was like, yes, that's it. Because all of the most important decisions that I've made, and when I really think about it, professionally, personally, have all been a strong feeling in my gut that I just knew was the right thing, and it wasn't really overthinking. It was like, just go. Yeah. And that's really what that's all about. So, I mean, I would just, anybody that's in that growth stage of a business, if you're bringing on anybody, that's pumped some capital into your business and now wants, you to justify every decision you make, I would just say your responsibility, if you're one of these, founders or entrepreneurs, sometimes you need to make decisions when there's no data to support it.
So to that point, because I got a couple of things to, again, bringing it back to the cleaning industry, there is a lot of private equity coming into our space. It's a very sexy industry since COVID. Yep. Especially the cleaning business side. And I hear that what you just said is, hey, Rick, man, your business is booming. It's looking so great. Man, if we just pumped X amount of capital, do you imagine where we could go with it? We could get to this exponential multiplier, and then you could exit. And this whole like, fuck yeah, let's talk about that. Hell yeah, like I like the way that sounds. But then my cousin Tony is big on this, and my brother, because he is, he's the finance side of the business. So I'm lucky that I have them, and we have these multiple personalities. And me and Marley are very instinctful how we built the business too. Is that word instinct? As I think that's another thing where we have, like, as founders that went through the shit, got through it, got to a point where you can build it, where people do want to give you money. Mm-hmm. And they do want to say, here's capital. I love your motto already, but let's 10X it. Mm-hmm. Okay, yes, we'll take some of the funds. We'll take some capital. Let's grow. But don't forget to say, but I know this business. I have an instinct for where we got to. Allow me to still make my decisions. Like, yes, spreadsheets are great. Metrics are going to help. But I feel like those just help enhance the business. Yeah, and set it up to make informative decisions, but never forget that instinct got you there, especially the founder.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, I've had some cool experience with this, honestly, across the last 10 years, going from a business that when I joined was making about $250,000 in revenue, all the way through a sub $40 million a year business. What I've seen is as the company, the founder is really the one who sort of determines the destination. Like, imagine you're at port, you're sitting and you're about to board this ship and everybody's got to get on it. Mm-hmm. You're the one that really kind of points and says, like, that's the destination. The data, in my opinion, helps you adjust the sails. So you start moving in that direction and there's some data that pops up and you say, oh, you know what, let's turn this thing 3 degrees and over a long period of time we'll end up in this destination that we were pointing at. So I think too often, especially as companies grow, then they go try to create a second product or a third product. Those things are super hard to create additional products. Everybody's looking for data. How big is the TAM? How many customers would convert from this to that? The reality is, like, you really don't know until you really feel it and you kind of go make it happen. And then you find out all the reasons, the little reasons you're wrong, and you kind of try to make them right. There's really no secret. But So how do you? Equity definitely thinks that they know every way to do it.
There's got to be a balance though, too, where whether it's for me in the cleaning business or in software, you in software, is like yes, there's got to be a certain moment where we help with the vision as the founders or the owners. Mm-hmm. But there's the balance of we use the data to help us get to that direction, right? Like you were explaining, it's the I like that analogy actually as a boat. I've heard another one, like if you were flying a plane, you know, like the way you're steering it, the degrees and stuff.
Yeah.
But like because we're wrong.
Yeah.
We can be wrong. We can
we will be wrong, but
wrong.
we need to start.
We need to start. But like, how is there like type of personalities and people that you think you need to align yourself? Again, not talking about the capital, the funding, the investors that would come in, but like people on your team. What's a good recipe for success?
Yeah, this is a great one. Another one to hit on with cleaning cocktails with hire bus. I mean, those guys would understand sort of a more prescriptive dynamic than I could for the cleaning industry. Mm-hmm. But what I would say is there's a certain, when you look at sort of people, there people are going to fall on a scale of autonomy. You know, how much do they prefer or just generally work without having somebody tell them what to do? There's sociability, like do they have this gift of gab? Is it easy for them? There's conformity, which so many people think, I'm not a conformist. And it's like, no, you are. If you like process, if you like to know, if you like the 7 bullets in order for you to start working, that means that you would fall high on a conformity scale. And then you have just like sheer energy. I think like that people like kind of bring, and almost like that forceful impact that you're talking about. I think there's all sorts of personality traits, but I think for different roles, I mean, I've seen people be really successful. You know, for example, you mentioned like you don't like having like an EA for, just as an example.
I need in person. I can't do virtual.
Yeah.
Oh.
You need to be able to just talk to them. Yeah. And that's just the way that you're wired. Mm-hmm. And if you try to force yourself into doing it another way, it's not going to happen. But take somebody who is, really is like high on autonomy and high on non-conformity. Okay, so like my profile, super high on autonomy. Like I don't like people telling me what to do, but conformity, like I'm in like non-conformity in the 99.9 percentile. Like if somebody tells me something can't be done or shouldn't be done that way, I'm like, oh yeah, until now, you know.
Until now.
So, but you need somebody to balance that equation. You need that person that has enough of your respect and admiration to sit there and challenge this big decision in a good way, not to be a naysayer and say we shouldn't go do your vision, but to challenge and say like help me understand these things. Because if you just start running in one direction and you're a really assertive person, you could end up just wasting everyone's time for 6 months, a year, 2 years.
Well, dude, that is funny you just said that, because so we have Ernesto on our team. He's our new head of product that I was telling you about. And as you say that, you're going to hear me say this, Ernesto, but like I hear him challenge us and some of the team that way. Is the way, again, it's nothing personal. Yeah. Like he just questions like, but why did you think, I'm trying to understand why you think I feel that way about that solution. Or for the first second you may think like, what? Like, dude, what, are you like questioning me? No. He's asking you, like he wants to double down, like validate. Yeah. Explain to me. Like I need to understand this better. I'm like, not many of people that we bring in challenge us to that degree. So it's been refreshing to be able to have to dig deep down and say, oh, so I have to explain myself further. Okay. Like, shit. Okay.
And it's good. I mean, I think that's a sign of growth for leaders, honestly, like, because again, just knowing you the way I do and knowing myself, because I have this too, there's a reptilian reaction that's happening in a part of your brain that hasn't evolved when somebody questions your authority in public. Like, it's like, fuck, you know, like just for that half second. But this is literally the emotional intelligence piece, right? It's like, number one, knowing that a reptile just emerged from your head and was like, and then for you to like in that moment be able to recognize it and then manage yourself to say, oh, wait a second. like I need to be open. Otherwise, how could I expect everyone else to be
Correct.
open? I need to
Another form
be
of
the
leading.
example
Yeah,
of,
be the
of what
example.
feedback looks like, right? Like if I'm going to give somebody feedback, especially in public, I need to be willing to do that myself. So
Yeah.
I actually think that's a great thing and a great practice.
No.
Sounds like a good teammate.
No, it was, yeah. So, all right, see how like dude, we keep talking and I have like a goal in mind. We're supposed to be talking about something else, but we keep
all
going.
good.
See, all right. So
Wherever you want to take it.
I want to bring this back, not as we come to an end because we still got more stuff to talk about. But Kris, let's talk about, especially from what I just saw with Buildout. Another reason why I wanted to sit us together and bring us together is, to me, there's some form of connection that commercial real estate, what you're building for the commercial real estate industry, specifically the broker, and what we're building for the commercial cleaning industry, specifically the cleaning business. We joke, but there's like one connecting piece, which is the property.
Yeah.
Right? So, like you guys know, in the cleaning industry, we service properties, right? We go in, we service, we clean 1 day a week, 5 days a week, 7 days a week. There's different services that we offer in there. And then on your end, on the property, you guys are helping the listing be sold, be rented, marketed, the message, the profile. Like again, I'm
Yeah.
speaking for you, but
Yeah.
that's what I took from there. So, explain to me now that I've told you a little bit about Route. And again, I feel like you could start a cleaning company as much as I've told you about the cleaning industry. What do you see it? Sitting down, talking to us, and learning a little bit about what we're doing.
Just a ton of similarities. I mean, when you think about that entity, the property in commercial real estate that just sort of goes through various life cycles of being owned by somebody else, but then its tenancy being occupied by somebody else, the ownership information is the most relevant to you guys, to Route. And frankly, that's what we're helping sort of transition that for the most part at Buildout. A lot of what we're doing is helping people for 150 million properties identify who the owner is, get their contact information, make the call, educate that conversation so that they can help their client understand how they might transact with that property. When that property changes hands, that's a great time for, like in any other business, when things change hands, it's a great time for new software. It's a great time for new services, et cetera. So being able to say, okay, like this property is about to change hands, for instance, we can see a lot of that stuff in Buildout because we can see a property's under contract. It's about to go to a new owner. And I kind of see like a very natural extension there with Route and a lot of similarities in just the way that the business runs from the property changes hands. And let's say, which is quite common across the country, everybody kind of has this idea that like commercial real estate is owned by all these like mega conglomerates, but really like
There's a lot of small,
70% of it is run by people with like 3 properties or fewer.
Oh, okay.
It's
Wow.
insane.
Yeah.
So they have these businesses or they just got this property. They don't have like somebody to come in and service it, to clean it, et cetera. What a time to come in and figure out, okay, what do you have in place? Do you need to a regular service? Do you need to all sorts of other things?
And Kris, it's like it's natural, right? Like if on your side you guys are working with getting them to that point, like our job is done. We helped the sale or transaction occur, right?
Yeah.
And like the relationship is built, both sides. Oh, and by the way, right, if you're looking for additional services for XYZ, which I know you probably are, or if not, here's where we could come in or a connection. So again, this is just us brainstorming. We're just talking shop here.
Yeah, it's interesting because like we have a data product that has like the property ownership information, and people want to know.
You guys don't know that. I know that now.
People want to know when their debt is coming up, because they want to know maybe like there's a balloon payment coming up, and this property owner might sell their property soon. So I want to get in touch with, I want to track this deal or what have you. We've tried some things in terms of like partnerships where the broker would suggest maybe like a syndicate of banks to do the financing or be able to sort of tee that up.
Same logic.
Yes, exactly. But what I saw more than anything, just kind of looking at the family of products for Route, was so many similarities of what we've tried to do on the brokerage side, sort of now applying to that property owner. I'm so used to looking at companies that do property management, like the MRIs and the Yardies and these bigger software worlds, but not the service component. Like who comes in right there at that point of transaction as soon as possible and tries to sell that new service. And you guys have, just like we do, a proposal generation tool. You have a whole back office and sort of invoicing and tracking everything that your people are doing, like similar to some of the stuff that we're doing, and a marketplace component, which is, I know is just kind of really getting going now. So many similarities between our businesses. So it's just interesting to see, for me more than anything, just how similar. You know, I know that we're sort of in the same vertical, but like as you just move across, if you move across that life cycle, you're like all the same problems. You know, it's just like a repeat of the same thing.
Yeah, no, man, no, that's and I that's why I appreciate, like, again, like I said, you guys, like me and Kris have known each other for a long time. We have some friends in the same groups, and you are like a mentor for me as far as where Buildout is and where Route is and where I wanted to get to. But then you take that apart. I love the similarities that we have on how we look at leadership, and just, it's important.
Yeah.
Right? Like the biggest thing is our teams and the companies that we built or work with. We care that much about what we're trying to build that, look, if you want to do it again, I did it again. Right? Like people could have said, Rick, what are you doing? You got rolls a lotto. Like, just keep going. It's like, I want to do it again. We have that hunger inside of us.
It's fun. It's fun. I mean, the leadership component, I mean, the best leaders that I've seen, or at least I should say that I admire, because there are, I think 1 out of 4, maybe 3 now, of the Fortune 500 CEOs are clinically psychopaths.
Yeah.
Which means that, like, they can basically, like, just manipulate people without an emotional component. This is actually kind of cool for everyone. So when you look at empathy, there's different types of empathy. There's emotional empathy and there's cognitive empathy. Emotional empathy would be like, you're telling me a story about something that's affecting you and you start crying or something, and I feel it, like I start crying. Cognitive empathy would be you're explaining the same story to me. I don't feel it the same way. I don't feel sad inside, but I understand it. And then there's this whole piece called compassion. Compassion is like, you understand it and you do something about it. Because like really emotionally, how many people do you know that are emotionally empathetic but don't do shit?
They don't do anything about it.
It's just like, oh, I feel bad. It's like, yeah, well, thanks for helping. Like you just made everybody feel worse. So you kind of spread the bad news. But the interesting thing is, like, people that are cognitively empathetic and compassionate, or they're not actually compassionate. They can manipulate people. They're not actually trying to. They're not actually trying to do the right thing. So, when I think about the people I admire, I heard something the other day that was something like, know all the skills, know all the tactics, but when you're talking to another soul, just be another soul. Or human.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that's like really cool.
Because it could be dangerous too.
Super. Yeah. Right? And we get, like, that's the thing, all the people that I try to surround myself with now, and vice versa, the people that I just like distance myself from, are around this idea of like how do I feel when I'm in their presence? Like, do these people say stuff that doesn't match, or do stuff that doesn't match what they say? Are they constantly sort of manipulating and just like weird behavior that just feels like, I don't need this.
Yeah.
I got, time is already limited. I don't need to spend anymore around these type of people.
Dude, well, I don't want to say any more after that, because that piece alone, I know we can unpack, and I'm going to actually tell Jesus to mark that for me when we're in Cleaning Cocktails, because I think that component of the cognitive, the emotional, and then the compassionate, dude, we could go deeper on that. We don't have time to go deeper on it. We're going to leave you guys hanging on that. But Kris, I'm excited to be introducing you to my cleaning family, my cleaning industry. Because I think, again, since the day I invited you to come, we were trying to do this when we had the first event in mind. I think there's outside experience that you can bring to an industry like ours, because in order to be different, we have to think different.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of the industry is learning that, and we're doing that. In the last 5-6 years, there's been more community embracing competitiveness, like these events, for example. Dude, I got all competitors coming to the same industry
Awesome.
to like take in all this information to go back and do better for their business, but yet they'll go back and build each other and talk to each other, right? So, but all that being said, we also get stuck though in like, this is how it's always been done. This is how we do things. Hey, I have 10 threads of different cleaning business owners. Like, you got to have different threads of other business owners.
Of course.
And I do it, so I want others to do it too. So I say cheers.
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 There we go.
Cheers. You guys will all meet Kris in person at Cleaning and Cocktails in San Jose on July 23rd to the 25th. I say thank you again for being on here. Thank you again for sharing your story. Until next time, everybody, peace out. We are stronger together.